Hello, everyone. This is Homer Owens with East Kentucky Broadcasting, and once again, it's time for the City of Pikeville report. Fortunately, we have the man here who knows everything about that subject.
I don't know about that, Homer, but I'll give it my best shot.
Donovan Blackburn, the city manager, City of Pikeville. Hopefully, in the past 2 weeks, I had the hope of getting away from a subject, but it's going to dominate us once again, I can tell, because it has not been resolved as far as I know, and I hope you're going to correct me in just a moment and tell me it has.
Well, obviously it has not. It hasn't been completely resolved, but I have high hopes that by the end of this week, which is what I said, I guess, 2 weeks ago.
Maybe even 4 weeks ago.
Maybe
I'm
even
not sure.
4 weeks ago. But it is, Homer, it's a very important issue. It's an important issue to not just the city of Pikeville and Pike County, but it's an important issue for all of Eastern Kentucky for that matter.
Let me interrupt you. The subject is tourism in the county, and there is some disparaging positions taken by two different groups concerning taxes on bed and restaurants in the county city.
Yes. Well, and as I said, it's an important issue. It's an issue because of one, quality of life. It's not a matter of, and we've said this on the past shows, Homer, that both agencies, we don't have commonality or the same vision, I guess, on where we want to go. The problem is how we get there, and the funding, obviously, that's going to create or that's needed in order to get there. So, we understand, as we've said in the past, the city of Pikeville is in Pike County. Pike County is in the state of Kentucky. We're trying to generate opportunity. We're trying to use our natural resources that we have to pull in people to our community to create an economy here. And when I say we have difference of opinions, it's not a matter of opinions from what we need to do to get people here. We know we need marketing. We know we need events. We know we need planning. But the problem is the funding. The problem is that we have a facility here in the city, which is the East Kentucky Expo Center, that has to have funding in order to stay alive. It's a magnificent facility, and I've said this several times. There's 7 different studies that call this basically the catalyst of tourism for Pike County and the city of Pikeville and really within the region. So the necessity to generate a persistent, a continued revenue source is what is important here. I'm really excited for the fact that, we talk about all the things that aren't necessarily wrong, it's just a matter of opinion. But what I'm excited about is what this venue is now turning into and becoming. The stability factor is very, very important. Very, very important, Homer. And as you know, we've talked about this before, that what folks need to understand in this business, because it took me a while to understand it. You've been in it for a while, so I know you understand it already. But when you're recruiting an event, whether it's entertainment, whether it's a conference, whatever that it might be, it's not a matter of calling somebody today and saying, can you come in a month from now or 2 months from now? That process takes sometimes 3 to 6 months to arrange, and it's not the entertainer that you're contacting. It's not, you're not calling Big and Rich directly and saying, would you come to Pikeville?
You may never speak with Big and Rich in the booking of the act.
You're absolutely correct. And you may not speak directly to their manager. Usually what you're doing is you're speaking to a promotion company, a group that basically agrees to come in and pick up this act, and they go out, and they in essence, what they're doing is they're taking the risk of the act. And what I mean by that is that, let's say, using the Expo Center, you've got a 7,000 seat facility, and Big and Rich comes in, and they have to have X amount of dollars to make their profit, to pay their staff, to pay their setup crew, and et cetera. So what they do is they go to the promoter gets a cut of the profit, so they have to pay him also, then they have to pay for their act, and then they have to make their money just like we do when we work. So once you do all that, they come in and they calculate, okay, we have to sell 2,000 seats to break even, because the market can only hold, let's say, again, hypothetically, a $40 ticket. So there's it's a formula that goes into the equation as to whether or not a venue such as this is feasible for them.
It's an unforgiving formula too, isn't it, Donovan?
It's a very
You
unforgiving.
can't tinker with it too much.
Absolutely not, Homer. It is, the numbers are what the numbers are. And that's been a hindrance to this facility for a couple of reasons. One is because it is a maximum of only a 7,000 seat venue. To get the larger acts in here that can sell a 30,000 seat venue in, why do they want to come to a 7,000 seat venue when they can go to Lexington or they can go to Huntington and be in the same market and sell 30,000 seats? It just doesn't make sense to them. So we have to be very selective in either offering them more dollars or more cuts of the ticket sales to get a bigger act here, or we get lucky and we are in between 2 points, meaning that, you know, if they're going from Charleston to Lexington, we happen to be in the middle, they'll stop in between 2 booked dates and pick up, you know, another 5,000 or 6,000 seats in sales. So it's a process, and you have to worry about the formula to get there. Now, the problem has been is these promoters are taking the risk. When they come into this building, they say, okay, we're going to give X amount of dollars to the act, and then we have to have our cut. So we assume that we're going to sell 4,000 seats. So where the promoter makes their money, let me back up, the 4,000 seats gets them to a break-even point in order to pay the act or the entertainment. And again, it's a hypothetical number. Some venues it's 3,000 seats. Some venues it may be 2,000 seats, or acts rather, not venue, but an act. So what the promoter is able to then do is anything past 2,000 seats is their profit. So then the entertainer gets part of that, and then the promoter gets part of that, and then the expo center can get part of that. The problem has been is that the expo center itself hasn't had the funding to offer the promoter to partake part of that risk. And again, what I mean by that is let's say the promoter is taking, again, it takes 2,000 seats to break even for the act. The promoter's profit is 2,000 seats above. So the promoter has to sit there and think, okay, am I willing to take a $30,000 risk because that's what the first 2,000 seats are going to cost me to buy this act to bring it to the expo center? So he's taking all the risk. What the expo, a lot of promoters want done is they want to come in and say, okay, look, if you'll take half the risk, expo center, and we'll take half the risk, then I'm more willing to bring you this act in here. So it's now, instead of taking a 2,000 seat risk, they're only taking a 1,000 seat risk. And most of these acts, you know, they're going to sell, I mean, almost every act that we bring in will sell 1,000 seats. So the risk to them isn't that great. The benefit of that is for the expo centers, if you make a good buying decision, then you also get the profitability once you sell past the 2,000 seats. So the profit then comes back to the expo center to help for the operational cost. I know it's a very complex issue, but the problem has been, and I won't say the problem is without cash flow, you leave those dollars on the table that in essence could come back to pay for your operational cost. Because if you don't have money, you can't take a risk, and if you can't take a risk, you can't promote the good, you can't bring the good acts in here that you know will sell out, and therefore you're not able to generate any of the profitability to help pay for the facility. Because then what the expo center has been forced to do in the past is, instead of being a participant in getting part of the profits, because that's what a lot of folks think is well, you had Big and Rich there, you know, you sold out, you made a lot of money, and that's not the case. Because the expo center didn't have the money to put up, all that they've been able to do in the past is to offer the facility as a rental fee. So in essence, they say, okay, it's $20,000 to rent the facility, and that's all the money that the expo center gets is the $20,000. They get none of the profitability because they weren't willing to assume any of the risk. So now they've got the ability of being selective, of going in and buying these certain acts, taking part of the risk, but then getting part of the profits, which in essence will give us far more profitability than what we have been able to gain in the past. The problem is that if you don't have the funding to do that, you can't go out to recruit the good acts in here. The other part of that is from the promoter standpoint, they want to look out 6 months from now or 4 months from now, and they want to book their acts. Well, if there's no stability in the market or no stability in the facility, they don't want to do business with you. Well, now what we have seen over the past several months is these promoters that Steve St. John and SMG have had some difficulty in dealing with are now coming back to them, and we're signing deals. So
we're just getting to them that the city of Pikeville has taken over day-to-day operation, and therefore it's more stable.
Yes, it is far more stable. They're willing to listen. They're willing to talk, because understand again, Homer, if you look across the nation, and this should not be any surprise to anyone, because I have sat down since this tourism thing and since the expo thing has taken place. I've sat down with a lot of people, and I've heard them say, well, this is a drain. Why would the city want to take it over? It's because if you look across America, we're doing the same exact thing that most of these facilities do across the United States. Most, if not all, well, there's a few that probably are profitable, but the majority of these facilities lose money. They are a loss leader. They're to pull, again, this facility directly has about a $10 million economic impact to our community. Now, we've got to spend $600,000 in order to get to $10 million. The $10 million is then brought out to restaurants and gas stations and shopping and all the other things that they do when people come here for an act. So we're buying business into our community, which is then turning around spending residual money in other businesses. So it's what almost every one of these venues in America does. Now,
you're talking about a deficit operation, yes, and it absolutely was expected to be in the conceptual stage.
It was. It was expected back in '97 to have lost around $350,000. Now, again, understanding there's a lot of other factors that have now come into this facility. So when we did our feasibility study back in 2005, the experts looked at the facility then, and in 2005 projected for it to lose about $500,000. Last year, as I said, it lost last year it lost almost a little over $600,000. Year before that, it was $725,000. This year is projected to lose $685,000. I think, and I feel very confident in saying this, based on the path that we're heading right now, that this facility will probably be around $500,000 to $600,000.
Pikeville City Commission, are they willing to eat that deficit?
Well, they are, because what they have been able to do, Homer, is implement the restaurant tax. And again, it's a regional tax. The restaurant tax we project will bring somewhere between $600,000 and $700,000 a year in revenue into the city. It's a tax that is a very minute tax, 1.5 cents per whatever your meal is. So again, on a $10 meal, it's 15 cents. So it's a very small amount, but it's a regional tax. Understanding, and I've said this before, is that there's only 7,000 people live in the city, 63,000 now that live in the county, but the service area for the city is 244,000. So those are areas that are driving all around, that are coming here and spending their money here, and we're able to take advantage of those tax dollars to reinvest back in our community to draw more and more people back to our community, which is what creates an economy. I know what we're getting ready to get into here in just a minute.
I'm waiting for the key word.
Which is the bed tax issue.
There you go.
The bed tax issue is somewhat the same issue.
Has the bed tax issue become more contentious? Doesn't need to be ramped up. It was pretty high pressure to begin with, but there seems to be a hardening of positions rather than a move toward compromise.
Well, I've read the story, and if you read through the end of the story, I don't want, anytime that I'm speaking, whether it's to you, Homer, or the rest of the press, I don't want to be too presumptuous, and I definitely do not want to speak on behalf of my counterparts and people that I don't like doing that. I like to tell them or give you an essence of what is being said, what I am feeling, but certainly don't want to put words in the person's mouth.
It'd be presumptive of me or any other media person to assume that you could speak for the other side, and we wouldn't expect that of you. But we'd like to know what the city position is.
Well, with talks that we've had some very good talks. And again, I've said this every time that we've talked, is that the Tourism Commission does a great service for their community. These are people that are unpaid. They're good friends of mine, every one of them. Reed Potter and I have been buddies for many, many years. Judy Patton, as I said, we've gone to China together. I love her with all my heart. And there's several, the 7-member board, which they're a member short right now. These are all good people, good friends of mine. And they've got the best interests of Pike County in their heart. But as I have said, the City Commission's position is that they're looking at things from 30,000 feet, not just 5,000 feet. They're not just looking at the tourism piece, they're looking at the overall composite of how the city is made up, whether it's police protection, fire protection, economic development, growth, retail, emergency services, and I could go on and on. So their decision, a lot of their decisions based upon revenue is based upon this. The current state of the country, you've got Washington right now that's absolutely going crazy down there with that's just so divided that it's so partisan that it's unbelievable. This isn't partisanship here. This is just an idealism ship is what I'll call it, is that we have an ideal and a need in order to take care of the Expo Center, they have been working for years on trying to market and develop Pike County as well. So there's some commonality in the sense of what we both agree. It's just a different path we're getting there. Now, the city's position, you asked, is where are we today? And again, we have had numerous conversations as I presented a letter on the commission's behalf, and to date we have made 5 different proposals to the Tourism Commission on trying to work the funding packages out.
Of the 5, were they all different in nature?
Yes, all 5 were different. There was some components that were interjected, some components that were taken out. So we went back and forth and we added some different things to try to make it work. But in the very beginning, Homer, and I guess this is probably where we're heading, is in the very beginning when the Kentucky League of Cities came out with their opinion. And we certainly agreed also that under the current structure, and this is somewhat complicated, so and I've been dealing with it for months now, so bear with me in my explanation. But under the KRS 91A 390 and 360, which allows the city to set up an independent or joint board. Homer, the assistant county attorney, I believe would agree, and again, I don't want to speak on Roland's behalf, but I believe we're all in agreement that the city, the county, let me back up. The city commission, the city attorney, the assistant county attorney, the Kentucky League of Cities, I believe we are in agreement for certain that the city has the right to set up an independent tourism commission.
That's going to lead us into another subject in just a moment.
Okay. And the county has a right to set up an independent tourism commission. And that under the KRS 91A 390, requires, it doesn't say that you might or should or could, it says you shall implement a bed tax in order to pay for your commission. And that bed tax can be up to 3%.
Does that apply to both commissions that are now in effect?
In our opinion, absolutely. In our opinion, absolutely. And in the KLCs, and again, understand that these are the experts with the municipal law. They agree with that also, and that was in their first opinion. Now, that does that mean that both the county and the city has to have 3%? The answer is no. Both could have 1%, both could have 0.5%, or both could have 3%. Because you are required by law to fund your commission with a bed tax. Now, here's where, I won't say it's confusing, but what the argument is and what was displayed in today's paper is that early on we said that, look, if we succeed, and because we have to have this funding to ensure the Expo Center progresses, then the county is within its right that they're under their authority, they also have taxing authority over the city. And what a lot of folks call that is stacking a tax. In this essence, it's not stacking a tax because there is legislative authority that gives the county and the city the right to implement that tax. If the right wasn't there and you went in, you put a tax in, and the county put a tax in, then you're stacking it. In this case, under the KRS, it says that you can either create a joint or a separate commission, and you shall fund it. So it says, okay, county, you have to fund your commission, and city, you have to fund your commission with a bed tax. And since the county has authority over taxing over the city, then they have the right to tax the city businesses, and really legally have to tax the city businesses.
Do you think the citizens of the county and the city will appreciate those nuances?
Well, again, understand this, 2 things, or a couple of things, Homer, is one, the businesses in the city aren't the ones that pay the tax. It's kind of like the restaurant tax. It's paid by the visitors, the people that are coming through our area and traveling to and from Pikeville. So again, this is another way that I'll say, whether you agree with the tax or you don't agree with the tax, is this tax comes in from, you look at the different hotels, and you got people that are visiting, whether it's the college, medical profession, legal profession, these are other agencies or businesses, they come here. And I made this statement, and I got in trouble saying this, but I'm going to say it as well because it's true. Whenever I travel, I call and I ask the room rate. I don't ask what the tax rate is. I mean, that's just something that I understand that I'm going to go and I'm going to have to pay. So my first point is that is something that our local people doesn't have to pay. The businesses, the hotels here locally don't have to pay them. The residents here don't have to pay them. It's the travelers that come to the area. Those traveler dollars are then able to be reinvested into Pike County to again attract more people into Pike County, which creates commerce. So in order to, example, create a brochure to take it to Lexington or Louisville, to let people know what you've got, you have to have dollars to do that. We can spend our own dollars from our own tax base, or we can implement these taxes, which is what they were intended to do, to when people are traveling here, to spend their dollars here so that we can reinvest back out to those communities.
Let me see if I better understand this, and let me interrupt you,
Sure,
Donovan.
you're fine.
Suppose someone stays at a motel or hotel in the county, they would pay 3%.
That is correct.
If they stay at a hotel or a motel in the city of Pikeville, they will pay 6%.
Under the current ordinances as they are enacted today, yes.
Is that a part of the compromise that you're moving toward?
Well, I won't, here's the thing. I won't say compromise. I will say understanding. And there's a difference. And it's a respectful understanding. Because where it's somewhat confusing, Homer, is that the city has had a bed tax since the 1980s, okay? And currently it's a 3% tax. When there was a joint commission, the city granted those tax to the joint commission. So we have always collected 3%. So we're not implementing a new tax, it's the existing tax, okay? And this is where it's somewhat confusing. We always have collected it. Now when the city commission adopted a resolution withdrawing from the joint commission, which again, all agencies are saying that we were entitled to do. We legally believe we can do that. Then that 3% is no longer obligated to the Joint Commission. By KRS, it now has to go to the city's Joint Commission. So KRS says you can create a commission and you shall fund that commission with the bed tax. So in other words, the city's current ordinance will not allow, or the law for that matter, will not allow us to spend that money with the Joint Commission or the County Commission now. It has to be spent with the City Commission. So our existing ordinance is still in place. We're not collecting anything different. Now, the county has an ordinance also of 3%, but it only applied, or they were only collecting to the county hotels. Since we withdrew, and now they have a county tourism commission, now they again are mandated to use their bed tax for their county commission, okay? And since they were not longer joint, then because they have taxing authority in the city, their bed tax now has to apply to the city hotels also. So by withdrawing under the law, it's the process that triggers the mechanism of the KRS that requires both entities to have this tax over the hotels.
One of the results of this controversy that you're having with the Joint Commission is a double tax on the beds in the city.
Yes, you're right.
Let me put this to you before you go on.
You're fine. You're fine.
I have a brother who lives in Dayton, Ohio. He has a family of 6, and they're coming in for a funeral, a wedding, a whatever, a get-together. They're going to be affected. So to say that citizens of Pikeville are not affected, indirectly they may be under the circumstances I just described.
Well, I agree and disagree. I agree that anytime you're generating additional dollars out of somebody's pocket, then somebody's impacted. But the advantage of those additional dollars is they're being reinvested back into Pike County and Pikeville. That's the first thing. The second thing that I'll say is that this is not new. I went and looked at Lexington, looked at Louisville, Greensboro, North Carolina, Washington, D.C. Why did I look there? It's because I just recently stayed at all 4 places over this year. So I have bills or invoices from the hotels that I stayed there. Lexington has over, I think it's 6.5%. It's over 6% local tax. Total tax by the time your sales tax and your local tax is, I think, 13.5%. Louisville is, I think, 14%. Washington, D.C., I think was the highest at 15.2%. Greensboro, North Carolina was at 14.1%.
If you did the figures on Pikeville.
Pikeville will be 13%. Well, it's again, we're saying it's actually 6%, when in essence it's actually 7%, because there was also a 1%. They're currently within the city and in the county is a 4% bed tax. It's not really 3%, it's 4%. It's 3% for tourism and 1% for the expo center. That's the current tax structure. So, so what you would have now is instead of a 4%, you would have a 7%. So instead of 7% with the Kentucky sales tax, it would be 13%. So we would be equivalent to what Lexington's tax structure is for the bed tax. The difference, though, which I'll add, Homer, is that when you go to these same markets that we're talking about, our market is priced a whole lot less expensive than what those markets are. When you go to Washington or Lexington or Louisville, usually you're paying $200, $250 a night. Our average night stay here, I think, is right around $89 or $99. When you take the high end and the low end and you average it in between. So again, understand, when I go to Lexington, my tax dollars are being spent in Lexington, and they're able to offer more venues for the citizens of Lexington. So they're benefiting from my tax dollars as a resident of Pikeville. But when the residents of Lexington comes to Pikeville, we're not benefiting equally to what those residents coming from Lexington to Pikeville are. Now again, and I understand again that it's not that we're for taxes. What we're for is creating an economy and creating a way to pay for that economy. Because one of the things that I have said from day one is that I don't like taxes, but I'm willing to pay. The one tax I'm willing to pay is my local tax, because those dollars are being reinvested to improve my quality of life. My streets get paved. I'm able to now go down on Main Street and enjoy Main Street Live in front of the Expo Center. I can go up and hear my kids, my two boys can go play paintball up across from the YMCA, which is coming. I can walk a 5-mile trail. All these were paid by local tax dollars, all these projects, whether it's infrastructure or whatever. So the sense of fairness of if you look at it from different communities versus the city of Pikeville, we're not doing anything, would not be doing anything different than these other communities that are doing.
But you do understand that the word tax is a code word for panic.
Anytime that you throw a tax out there, and with that said, if you look at the average night stay, I mean, you're talking, on a $100 bill, you're talking $3 extra on a $100 bill. Now, again, $3 is $3. I'm not disagreeing that that's not money that you're taking out of somebody's pocket. But those are dollars that I'll argue, Homer, that's reinvested. Those $3 are being reinvested from outside travelers back into Pikeville. So to your point, when you have family members traveling here, I go back when I was a kid, and not even when I was a kid, Homer, when I first started as a city manager 7 years ago, the first piece that I was aware of that was done by A&E, and you may recall it was on the Lilly-Lid murders, and they labeled the city of Pikeville the city from hell. And some of the people that they interviewed during that skit 7 years ago, I recall it very, very well, was talking to a gentleman on the back of a pickup truck talking about that there was nothing to do here. They closed the bowling alley and there was nothing to do. From 7 years ago to today, and I'm not, 7 years ago there were still things to do, don't take me wrong, but 7 years ago from today, look at what there is to do in Pike County. There's river trails, there's paintball, there's music, there's expo, and I can go on and on and on, and all the things that we're able to take those local dollars to reinvest them back into our community. We had over 400 events. 7 years ago, 11 events scheduled in the park. This year, over 400 events scheduled in the park.
We may even get a chance to talk about them
well,
if we can get away from this subject.
Well, I think it's important for people to understand that, with today's gas prices the way that they are, with the economy as unstable as it is, people are having to, more and more people aren't traveling as far as they were. So we want people from West Virginia. We want people from Lexington. We want people that can travel 150 miles and come to our pristine mountains. Is the beauty that God's given to us. I mean, we've got, and I was, one of the things that we were talking about with the Tourism Commission, actually the city's Tourism Commission meets today, and as you know, I'm the chairman of that board. And some of the things that we're talking about right now is how we can take Pikeville and market it, not just statewide, but nationally at some point, at all the amenities that we have. Not only the amenities, but what God's given us, which is the beauty of the mountains and things. When you look at Abington, Virginia, and you look at things like Barter Theater and the Creeper Trail, Homer, we got the same. I mean, our beauty is, in my opinion, far above what Abington has. Abington's more flatland. I mean, they got some neat things happening. They got a unique downtown. We got a unique downtown. But the things that we have are assets like, we've got a medical school, we've got a university, we've got a National Hospital of the Year, we've got 2 times. We've got, East Kentucky Broadcasting, which has multiple stations and can really get the word out. These are resources. We got Pike TV now. These are resources that we can utilize to our advantage, not only to get the word out, but look at really now what we have created. And the majority of this has been created. I've been here for 7 years, over the last 7 years. I mean, these are entities that have been here, but they've been somewhat stagnant. And I'm not saying, don't take me wrong, I'm not saying that we're taking credit for it. The Kentucky League of Cities is doing a magazine article that comes out in August, or September rather, that the feature or the article is called The Perfect Storm. And we've got great leadership in our community right now with people like, and I've said this before, with Paul Patton at the college, Walter May at the hospital, Wayne T. Rutherford with the county, Mayor Frank Justice, here with the city. We've got good leadership in place that's very progressive thinkers. We have disagreements, But I have sat down with Judge Rutherford now 4 times over this tourism piece. We've not broken away.
That's only a
We're working
byproduct
together.
of forward thinking and progress disagreements.
Well, that's, you know, if you're agreeing on everything you're doing, you got a problem. I assure you, you've got a problem. Different ideals prompt different discussions, different opinions, and compromise is where it's at. And that's where I believe where we're at today. And I have a meeting, we're taping this on Wednesday, but I have a meeting the 27th. I have a meeting this Friday with the judge, Reed Potter, who's the vice chair of the Tourism Commission for the county, Rusty Davis, the city attorney, and Roland Case, the assistant county attorney, to discuss where we go from here. And you know, as it was listed in today's paper, certainly nobody wants to go down the path of legal ramblings, because you know, we're spending taxpayers' dollars on what we're paid to do anyway, and we're paid to compromise. We're paid to sit down and hold Pike County's interest at heart. If we're forced to that position, then we have to take that action, but nobody wants that action.
Well, let me ask you something. Have we not met all the requirements from both sides? You're going to have a bed tax that will fund improvements at the Expo Center, capital improvements, maintenance, and the Joint County Commission has intact their funding, much as it was before this controversy took place. Has the controversy settled anything really, or was it necessary?
Well, the question was it necessary? The answer is yes and no. And you know, what we portray sometimes as controversy, I don't really paint it as controversy or fighting. I paint it more as really discussions, which is what I get paid to do. It's funny to me, you know, my church had our annual communion meeting this past weekend, and we meet 3 times, and on Friday, Saturday, Sunday this past week. I belong to the Raccoon Primitive Baptist, and under our 3-day event, I had numerous people in church come to me and say, you know, I really feel for you because I see all this heat that you're getting and all this controversy. What they don't understand, and that's what I've told each one of them, was what you don't understand is you see this because it's being highlighted. This is my life daily. It's not controversy. It's what government does. You know, Homer, my day is filled with an average of 5 to 6 meetings a day, and it's coming up with solutions. You know, both sides. Again, if they both agree, then there's usually an issue. Somebody's just giving in without really thinking it through.
So, are you happy with the course of this controversy or whatever day-to-day operations?
Well, yeah, I mean, the answer is, am I happy with anytime you have to implement taxes? The answer is no. What I'm happy with is that the taxes that are there are going to be reinvested back in our community to create a resolve to what this issue is. The meeting Friday is basically bringing all parties together and saying, yes, we agree that this is what can be done. Not necessarily that we agree with the action, that we agree that everybody is within the right to do this. And it's not that we're opposed to the action. Don't take my statement wrong. The intent is to sit down and say, this is the understanding of the law, because ultimately what I believe the county would say, and the city definitely is saying, and what the KLC has said, is that if it ends up in litigation, at the end of the day, the courts are going to say, the law says you can succeed. The law says you can fund it. I don't think there's any dispute that we can do what we've done. The only question is could you implement a restaurant? I mean, a bed tax, a double bed tax? And the answer of the KLC and the city and the county is yes. We haven't had that conversation with the Tourism Commission yet, with the County Tourism Commission yet. And I plan on having that discussion with the City Tourism Commission today to make sure that everybody is on board.
This idea of splitting the tax or doubling it one way or the other, you haven't presented that to the Joint Commission, the county?
It has been, it has been discussed early on. If you look at the letter that was submitted by the Kentucky League of Cities several months ago, it was embedded in that letter as well, and we have said that from day one. However, our intent through our five proposals was a compromise of saying, well, maybe we don't have to implement this extra tax. Let's look at what their other options are. Here's what all the other options are. The county's position was, as well, if we follow one of the options, we feel like we're not able to accomplish what our mission statement is and what our goals is. The city's position is that if we don't compromise, then we're not going to have the money for the capitals for the Expo Center. So at the end of the day, we go back to what the KLC first told us, and what we agree is that under the law, both parties is able to do this. Now, at the end of the day, Homer, the question will be is and that's what my point was with the county and will be with the Tourism Commission. At the end of the day, if we go to court, we're all agreeing that we can. So the necessity to spend money to go through court really isn't a necessity. Now the question then comes down at some point is does each agency have to have a full 3%? Or can they lower it down to 2%? Can they live with 2%? Can they live with 1% at some point? Right now the city has to have 3%. I believe the county feels like they have to have a 3%.
Does 3% from the city satisfy your need with the expo?
I believe it will. I believe it will. And as I said early on with this program and with the commission, is that it's going to take us 2 years to really get out of the hole that the Expo Center is in. And when I say out of the hole, I don't mean that negatively. It was nobody's fault. It was the economy's fault. It was the economic position that their board was faced with at the time. I applaud Charles Barrett and their board for keeping it afloat as long as they were able to do. But understand that we have a debt right now of it's actually about $350,000 that still hasn't been paid on the facility. We have a projected debt this year of $680,000. So you're talking, $1 million to $1.1 million this year. Next year, if we get this debt all caught up, and I believe we will because we have $200,000 the county has in coal severance with the restaurant tax, with the bed tax, then I think by the end of 1 year, I'm not talking about the end of December, I'm talking about July to June, which is our fiscal year, then I think we'll have everything caught up. And then the following year, we're only looking at a deficit of maybe $600 to $650. With more events coming in, we'll generate the sales tax that Representative Combs and Ray Jones worked on. Those dollars will come back to us. With taking some of the risks that I explained earlier today, we're actually going to generate more profitability on the facility. So those dollars, I think, will come down over the years to where maybe some of the percentages don't have to be nearly as high.
The city fathers, are they still comfortable with this situation?
Yeah, I mean, they are. They understand. Homer, again, we have a nonpartisan commission. That's by statute our form of government, city management form of government. They're not partisan, but we have both sides of the aisle represented here. Nobody on this commission likes taxes. I can assure you of that. But what they do like is, or not really like, is what they are responsible for is, their fiduciary responsibility is to have a balanced budget each year. Currently, the way their current economic climate, we were not able to do that. We had to pull money out of the reserve. We had to do some cuts. The county was in the same position. These taxes being brought in and where they're comfortable with is that they understand when we go to Lexington or Louisville, I'm getting ready to go to the East Coast. I know again, I got a 14% tax that I'm getting ready to pay going to the beach. They understand if we're leaving our community and our people are leaving our community and paying our taxes out, then when people are coming here visiting us, we got to give them something to come and visit us for, whether it's paintball or the kayaking or the expo center. But when they're here, let's let them spend their dollars here and their tax base here so that we can create more and more. So we create a better quality of life. We create an economic opportunity. And we've not really got into the discussion about how that the expo center or these things also impact other agencies, such as what our economic catalysts are. And we're talking about the hospital, for example, or the university. That was another dollar item.
That's a dollar.
Or the university. You've got the NAIA National Champions is housed in the East Kentucky Expo Center. The girls team just moved in. They just spent $200,000 to build a new locker room. We're talking to them about putting a trophy case in the facility. So when you talk about all the venues that the Expo Center has now, and that's what frustrates me, and this comes why this organization is so important, Pike TV, and East Kentucky Broadcasting is so important, is that getting the word out, that it's not just about the concert coming into this facility, even though we've got 9 scheduled. It's also about all the other things that this facility brings. Again, I told you before, we have 110 events scheduled in the Expo Center between now and the end of the year. That's everything from a wedding to a small conference to meetings to entertainment. Right now we've got Mickey Mouse on Ice that's been announced. We've got Billy Currington coming. We've got Big and Rich coming.
August 13th, by the way, is the date on that. Thank you very much for bringing Gretchen Wilson.
Gretchen Wilson, which I'm really excited about.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really, I can't announce them as I told you before, but we got some really nice acts to follow. Hopefully we're getting ready to sign a comedian here pretty soon. So it's about the mix. We've got things that in the past we may have not been able to bring, but understand that this facility, for the size that it is right now, is being extremely well utilized. And then on top of that, we took an asset such as the front plaza, and we have turned it into a venue.
How is that working out? By the way, give us a report on that.
Well, now that you mention it, Homer.
All right. Just happen to have some facts there.
I have quite a few things here before me, and again, we always need more time because there's so much.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much going on, and I know this tourism piece has we've really taken
dominated our thinking.
It has, but it's an important issue. The community needs to understand it because, to your point, when they hear new tax, they think they're all, when we pass the restaurant tax,
eyebrows go up.
The local TV station did a story, and the first thing that the restaurant owner said is that I can't afford to pay a tax. They didn't understand they weren't the ones paying it. Once they understood it, everybody's been happy with it. I mean, I'm satisfied because they understand what it's bringing. A restaurant knows that by that restaurant tax, we're able to create more of these events, which means more people come into the city, which means more people are going to eat. So they understand the benefits of this. But the Main Street Plaza, which, understand this is a Main Street initiative. The city worked with the Main Street program to generate the dollars. This was a project that we wanted to do 2 years ago in conjunction with the new facade program. But the Main Street Plaza has just opened. There's still a little work that we're doing with it. But we had our first event there last Friday. It was well attended. We'll have events there the first and third Friday of the month. But the plaza is open. It's got, there's a little brochure here that I have that they just hot off the press. But we just activated our free Wi-Fi. So, understanding having a university and a technical college, you got a lot of college kids, you got a lot of professionals downtown that run around with laptops. I'm lost without mine. But you have free Wi-Fi on the plaza. The plaza is open, free to the public. You can go in, sit down. The intent was and is not only to have the events, and we'll have more and more events. The artisan group is scheduling more and more events on the plaza. It's really nice to see how this thing is catching on. But with the artisan group and the Main Street program, basically what they've done is they've taken the responsibility of dividing out to each person, and they're responsible for generating an act and bringing an act onto the plaza. So you may see everything from jazz to an orchestra to bluegrass. I mean, it's going to be different.
Food is involved in that also? It
is. When there is an event, the Expo Center will cater or have food available on the plaza during events only. Now, and I'm talking about again, the first and third Friday. During non-events, it's open during the week. There is on the back of this, of the new flyer that we have out, and this will be released, is all the restaurants that are here in the city of Pikeville, along with their phone number. And beside each restaurant, these will be laminated on all the tables. Beside of each restaurant will be an asterisk for those restaurants that deliver. Or, if you want to drive by and pick something up at one of the other local restaurants, we're giving phone numbers for you to call ahead, place your order, pick your order up, come downtown, crank up the umbrella. We'll have music. We've got a speaker system out there. We're going to have music playing during lunch hour. You can come out and have a business meeting there, kick up your laptop, enjoy the setting, call from one of our local restaurants. They'll deliver. We're going to have all the tables that are numbered. So they'll deliver, they'll know what your table number is, deliver it to your table. So it's something new and neat. They're working with Muscle on Main, which has 9 events a year. So we'll have an event.
And the numbers are still up for Muscle on Main.
The numbers, yes, they are. They continue to climb. We've got more and more people that's participating. There's some, again, I would love to sit here and tell you everything that we're getting ready to launch. Homer, we've got some great things that are getting ready to be out to announce. Everybody needs to stay tuned. Definitely, we've got some major announcements that are coming up that we're working on. We just signed a deal this past week. Some things we'll be able to announce soon that will be taking place downtown. So people are going to be really excited and turning their heads at what's happening in downtown Pikeville, which is part of why I go back to the Tourism Commission, the views of marketing these things. We can create them all we want, but we've also got to get the word out that we need to be able to let the people in the Flatlanders know what we got here.
We may be able to play a role in that.
I believe I know somebody that's got a few people's ears.
I'm going to have to go back to that subject we started with. There is some question about the collection of taxes that have not been dispersed over the last 2 quarters of this year.
And that's still under debate. And as I said in the paper, that's certainly open for discussion. I talked to the assistant county attorney about it Monday. Certainly, the city implemented the City Tourism Commission within the second quarter. So the second quarter, as far as the city's concerned, isn't under debate. The first quarter, obviously, there was still a joint commission. I've got to bring that back to the commission once we have a resolve. And, the city's not unfair. I mean, that's one thing that I can say about this commission.
Let me ask you why they haven't been dispersed.
Well, the answer is really simple. The answer is that during the first quarter, the city was still part of the Joint Tourism Commission. During the first quarter, the Expo Center had a significant loss of over $600,000, and there was a need for a funding mechanism to be in place. So the commission's position is that we need, our position is we need to negotiate where these funds are being diverse to. We had, when it was a joint commission during the first quarter, we still had a voice as the city commission because we were an entity as part of that commission. We had a voice as part of that commission. Now that we've broken away, we still feel there's an argument that we could have or keep those dollars to disperse them to a tourism initiative, which is the Expo Center, since we have a city tourism commission. Now, are we going to be unrealistic in the sense of our talks? The answer is no. I mean, we're going to work this thing out one way or the other. We're not unreasonable people. We just want, and as you know, there's no difference in what I'm saying that the county or the tourism commission wants. We want to work these issues out. We want to work together. Because we understand there's a need for us to work together. We're all Pike Countians.
When's the next opportunity to work it out?
Friday. I believe, I'm hoping, and I have, well, let me back up. Friday is when we're meeting with the county. Then I'm meeting with the City Tourism Commission today, and then I assume that the County Tourism Commission will meet sometime next week. I assume they'll call a meeting so that the information can be passed back out to them so that they understand what the issue is.
29th is Friday. This is taping on the 27th.
Right. So the county, a member of the tourism, and the city will be meeting to hopefully come to a resolve this Friday. That is my earnest hope, and I feel like we're there. And again, I had a good conversation with Reed Potter this week. I had a great conversation with the county judge and deputy county judge John Doug Hayes and Roland Case. I've spoke with him a couple of times. And
are you saying it can be put to bed Friday?
That's a good spin on that. I like that, Homer. You
I'm trying to get to the end of that.
That's good. I like it.
Oh, I'll take that as a no.
I'm hoping it can definitely be put to bed. No pun on your words, but I'm definitely hoping that because, and that was, if you read the letter that we wrote, the last letter that the commission asked me to write wasn't necessarily a offer. It was a position, and the position is that we have beat this horse to death. We've got business to do. We need to move forward, and
we need a new subject to talk about.
That's exactly. And I assure you, Homer, and things that we won't get today is I've got tons and tons of things that the city is either in the middle of or getting ready to work on, and this Expo Center is so important that it's taken up a lot of our time. It's taken up a lot of my time, and the tourism piece as well. But it's an important issue. But we have a lot of things going on in the city that I need to divert my attention to and get down to business. And not that stuff has been neglected. It's just it would be nice if I could focus energy and efforts to creating some of these other things that are needed.
And you don't want to get away from your relationship with the Joint County
Absolutely
Commission
not.
Because the future beckons.
Well,
Pikeville is not a stagnant place.
And that's the frustration sometimes at what you sometimes, and I won't say frustration at what you read or hear, because I respect, and I've told you this, Homer, several times, I respect the profession that you're in, because it's very difficult to get a snippet in whether it's a 15-second slot or a 30-second slot or a minute slot on something that's been going on 3 months or 6 months.
You give me an hour and I'll drill toward it though.
Well, I know, there's no doubt about that. You've drilled me enough over the last little bit on these issues, Homer. You do a great job, but it is difficult. But people need to understand that that we have a difference of opinions. It's not necessarily a feud. It's a different opinion. We both want this thing completed and finished and put to bed, as you say. And we're committed. We're going to work together. I keep saying over and over, these are my friends. Reed and I had a great conversation about the Friday event at the Expo Center. I mean, so it's we have our business over here, and then we have the things that we enjoy with Pikeville and Pike County over here. And we understand that, and we have always said from day one that there will be compromise. I'm hoping that Washington, D.C. will take heed with what we're saying and doing. And
is there going to be an approachment there about help?
Well, we've gone to our legislators asking, both nationally and locally, and asking for assistance for funding. And I know our local legislators, they're committed to this Expo Center. They've said from day one, and they've proven that with Cole Severance, Senator Jones, and Representative Hall, and certainly Representative Combs. I've had great conversations with.
What about the federal level?
Again, we've had conversations with Congressman Rogers' office, and I don't know, again, from the standpoint from a federal level, because of the federal turmoil that our country is in right now financially. But what we've asked for is things to maybe help improve the facility. One of the things is what we're airing on right now with Pike TV. Pike TV will continue to grow. Al and his staff are doing a phenomenal job right now. You look at the quality of this program. You look at all the different programming. I mean, transparency is now out there. This thing's unscripted, as we've said time and time again. You're asking the questions, and I'm going to answer them. That's been our commitment. But we need things that we can expand on, that we don't have to turn that over to the taxpayers to pay for with Pike TV, such as possibly mobile units, the ability of broadcasting live, out of the Expo Center. So there are federal grants available that we're turning to our national leaders to ask for their help with some of these initiatives. And I know, as always, Congressman Rogers has always been a major supporter of Pikeville and Pike County, and Chris Gergen, his assistant, is I've had his ear over the past several weeks about this issue, along with several others, and they're doing a great job working with us, as they've always done. So I'm really excited about what the opportunities.
As you said in the past, deferred maintenance and capital improvements a big cause of this discussion.
It's a big cause. When you've got a 130,000 square foot facility that has all these bells and whistles, from everything from entertainment systems to lighting systems to telescopic seatings to restaurants and equipment, there's a lot of dollars invested in that facility. And again, under the leadership of Charles Baird, and when Donna Dameron was there over the facility, they've done a great job creating a magnificent facility. The funding mechanism now has to be able to not only pay for the facility to allow it to operate now, but you have to understand the need for the capital cost. You got a 7-year-old facility. I challenge anybody to go over and look at the concrete that's in front of the box office. You'll see it's cracking, and the reason it's cracking is because there's a basement underneath of this, which is where U-Pike is the men's team is housed. And with the condensation, the heat and the air down in the basement, as it rises up, it creates that concrete to expand and contract.
These were unanticipated problems.
Nobody knew that these things were going to come up. Well, let me restate that. Everybody knows that there's going to be capital improvements. You have to know that if you're in the building business. But you don't know how severe they're going to be, and that's a severe problem. That's just one problem that's severe. The seating, having the ability of the seating on the arena floor contracts and expands. You have to have that, or you can't do some venues on the floor. Well, they've had problems with the system. It's all locked up, and there's been money they've had to spend there too. So there's a lot of dollars that goes for the upkeep of this facility.
One thing we cannot fight and cannot change is the fact that we've run out of time again, once again.
Well, it's a pleasure. Again, Homer, I appreciate it. A lot of good information. You keep drawing it out of me and making sure that our community, which is a great community, they need to understand, they need the answers to these questions. We're here to serve, and that's one thing that we haven't lost focus of with the city and the county. Is we're here to serve the people that we're here either elected or appointed to do so.
It's Donovan Blackburn, City Manager of the City of Pikeville. I'm Homer Owens for East Kentucky Broadcasting. We'll do it again in a couple of weeks, right?
Absolutely. We'll be here.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.